Chronicles of the Grim Reaper, The Weight of the Fog, by Griz, Calderon. Colton sat in the cab of his 18-wheeler, rain tapping steadily against the windshield like a lullaby coaxing him into rest. The storm had chased him across 3 counties, making visibility nearly impossible. Other trucks lined the lot of the roadside rest stop, their red taillights glowing faintly through the sheets of rain. He switched off the ignition, stretching his tired legs, and let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Colton had driven through fog many times before. As long as he took it slow and remained cautious, he knew he would be fine. Tomorrow would be a clearer day. The weather report promised morning fog, but he could handle fog. As the sun barely crept over the horizon, Colton eased the truck back onto the highway. The fog hung low, thick as a wool blanket over the landscape. The road twisted ahead of him, barely visible beyond the beams of his headlights. He hummed along to the cassette tape playing softly through the speakers, a song drifting gently through the quiet cab. His fingers drummed on the steering wheel as he sang along, letting the music fill the lonely space. Suddenly, the shape appeared through the fog, dark, solid, and too close. His heart leaped into his throat as he yanked the wheel to avoid the object. But it was too late. The impact rattled through the truck, and in the rearview mirror he caught a glimpse of headlights behind him. An SUV was following, and he knew in that instant that if he lost control, they would collide. Colton made a split-second decision, guiding the truck away from the road and into the dense forest lining the shoulder. He thought he could handle the maneuver, maybe damage his cargo, or walk away with minor injuries. It never crossed his mind that it would cost him his life. Branches snapped, and the cab shuddered violently as the truck plowed through the trees. The heavy cargo behind him groaned, but Colton barely noticed. The weight of the branches piercing the windshield pressed against him, and in the fading light of his consciousness, he saw a figure beside him. The Grim Reaper stood just outside the cab, his presence like the fog itself, cold, inevitable. Why? Colton thought. He had been careful. He had stopped to rest. He had waited until the rain had passed. The Reaper raised a hand, and in the blink of an eye, Colton sat in the back seat of an SUV. Behind him, a man drove calmly, his wife sleeping next to him. A little girl clutched a doll behind the driver's seat, and a baby cooed quietly in the car seat. Their dog stretched out across a fleece blanket in the rear. The Reaper's voice came not as sound, but as a thought that filled Colton's mind. If not you, it would have been them. Your life saved 5. Colton watched the family in silence, his heart aching. As much as he wished to live, he could not wish the alternative. The SUV pulled over to the side of the road, just ahead of the crash. A man stepped out carefully, peering toward the wreckage. The woman called for emergency services, her voice trembling as she tried to stay calm for the children. The fog pressed in around them as the man stood there, knowing deep down there was nothing more he could do. All they could do was wait. And so they did. As the Reaper and Colton faded from the scene, the cassette player in the cab of the 18-wheeler clicked off with a soft mechanical clunk. The end.